Study Session 11, Non-Verbal Communication in Group. Introduction. In this study session, we will focus on non-verbal communication. We will also explore the functions of non-verbal communication in groups. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Describe non-verbal communication. 2. Identify 5 types of non-verbal communication. 3. Explain functions of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication. This is a type of communication in which members are exchanged without using any word, that is, without speaking out. Non-verbal communication may take many forms. We communicate by the way we move, the expressions we make, the clothes we wear, even by the way we arrange our homes and offices. Forms of non-verbal communication. According to Disastro 2001, non-verbal communication or expression may be in form of posture. People tend to be relaxed in non-threatening situations and to tighten up when under stress. Some people never relax, and their rigid posture shows it. The degree of physical tenseness can reveal status differences. In interaction between a higher and a lower status person, the higher status person is usually more relaxed, the lower status person more rigid and tense. The overall posture communicates different messages to people. For instance, in a class, students' position may tell us whether the lesson or lecture is well received or not. If students are leaning forward in their chairs, it is a sign that the presentation is going well. If the students are slumping in their chairs, it suggests that the presentation is becoming boring. Body orientation. This is the extent to which we face towards or away from someone with our head, body, and feet. Facing someone signals an interest in starting or continuing a conversation, while facing away signals a desire to end or avoid conversation. Therefore, the phrase "turning your back" concisely summarizes the message that is sent when you turn away from someone. Facial expressions. The face and eyes are generally selected as the primary source of non-verbal communication because facial expressions often are mirrors that reflect thoughts and feelings. Ekman and Freysen, 1975, identified 6 basic emotions that facial expressions reflect. These are fear, surprise, anger, happiness, disgust, and sadness. Eye contact. The eyes communicate different messages to people. For instance, when you want to end a conversation or avoid it, you look away from the other person's eyes. If you want to start a conversation, you often seek out the receiver's eyes. You wait until the receiver looks at you, and when he does, it is a signal that he's ready to begin talking. The eyes also communicate dominance and submission. For instance, when a high status person and a low status person are looking at each other, the low status person tends to look away at first. Downcast eyes often signal submission or giving in. It may also signal sadness, boredom, fatigue, remorse, or disgust. Eye expressions suggest a wide range of human feelings. Wide open eyes imply wonder, terror, frankness, or naive. Lowered eyelids may mean displeasure. A constant stare connotes coldness. And eyes rolled up suggests the person believes another behavior is strange or unusual. Gestures. These provide clues to a person's thoughts and feelings. They are used in relation to verbal messages to repeat, substitute, accent, contradict, and regulate. Some people literally speak with their hands, arms, and head movements. People who are nervous tend to fidget. They might bite their fingernails, tap their fingers, rub their eyes or other parts of their body, bend paper clips or tap a pencil. They may cross and uncross their legs and so on. Other gestures that provide clues to a person's thoughts and feelings are clenched fists, whitened knuckles, and pointing, fingers signaling anger, hugs, handshaking, and so forth. A person's sexual feelings can be signaled through gestures. According to Skeflin, 1974, the preening behavior of women, which sends a message that the sender is attracted to the receiver, include rearranging one's clothing, combing or stroking one's hair, and glancing in the mirror. Other invitational preening gestures that are specific to women are exposing a thigh, protruding a breast, placing a hand on a hip, exhibiting a wrist or palm, or stroking a thigh. Touching. Touching someone is an excellent way of conveying a variety of messages. This, however, depends on the context in which it happens. For instance, a hug at a funeral will connote sympathy, while a hug when meeting someone implies it is good to see you. A hug between parent and child means I love you, while a hug on a date may have sexual meanings. Touch is crucial for the survival and development of children. It is also crucial for adults to assure them they are worthwhile and loved. As young children need direct physical contact, such as being cuddled, held, and soothed, adults also need physical contact. Therefore, touching through holding hands, hugging, and pats on the back are ways of communicating warmth and caring. Voice. Messages are also exchanged through voice. Depending on emphasis, a word or phrase may carry many meanings. Usually, a person raises his voice at the end of a question and lowers it at the end of a declarative statement. Sometimes, an individual intentionally manipulates his voice to contradict the verbal message. When we emphasize particular words, our voices communicate in other ways. These include length of pauses, tones, pitch speed, volume, and diffluences, e.g., stammering or saying on, and, or. Clothing. People intentionally and unintentionally send messages about themselves by what they wear. Clothes give meaning about occupation, personalities, interests, groups, norm, values, mood, religious beliefs, and so on. Other non-verbal cues are physical appearance, breathing pattern of a group member, change in muscle tension, and emotional excitement. Functions of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication serves several functions. It interacts with verbal communication and can repeat, substitute for, accent, regulate, or contradict what is spoken. Repetition. Non-verbal messages may repeat verbal messages. For example, a husband may say he's really looking forward to becoming a father and repeat this happy anticipation with glowing facial expression. Substitution. Non-verbal messages may substitute for verbal messages. If a close friend has just failed an examination, though he may not talk about it, you can get a good idea what he's thinking and feeling by watching him or her. Accentuation. Non-verbal messages may have sent verbal messages. If you disappoint a friend by your action, he or she may emphasize the depth of his or her feelings by pounding a fist or banging the table, etc. Regulation. Non-verbal messages may serve to regulate verbal behavior. For instance, looking away from someone who is talking to you indicates that you are not interested in talking. Contradiction. Non-verbal messages may contradict verbal messages. An example is someone with a red face, bulging veins, and a frown yelling, "Angry eye? Hello, no. What makes you think I'm angry?" When non-verbal messages contradict verbal messages, the non-verbal messages are often more accurate. When receivers perceive a contradiction between non-verbal and verbal messages, they usually believe the non-verbal messages. Study session summary. In this study session, we discussed that non-verbal communication is an exchange of meaningful messages without using or speaking out any word. Non-verbal communication or expression may be in form of posture, body orientation, facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, touching, voice, and other forms. Some functions include repetition, substitution, accentuation, regulation, and contradiction. End of study session 11. Thank you for listening.